Something I love about astrology is that it's the study of fate and free will. So the fated parts are this is what is in our chart, but all things in our chart have a high and low and light and shadow and all the spectrum of expressions. And that's where our free will comes into play. So when there's a greater emotional charge, where you usually don't have the results that we want or express in the way that we want. When we realize these are resources that I have and we choose to take it into the uncharted land, which is the North Node. So in the North Node is things our soul has probably not experienced. And that's actually the key to not only our evolution, but it's the key to quantum leaping. It's the key to manifesting the life of our desires.
Welcome to the Seeing in the Dark podcast, the podcast for the women of the ancient futures. Women that see beyond eyes and know beyond mind and are here to make a change from a deep communion with the mystery of life. Seeing in the Dark is about walking paths that have not been walked before and daring to show up for the mission and dream life that is knocking on your door. My name is Nicole Nima Costeres, mystic, medium, initiated priestess, and here to take you into the mysteries of purpose, power, ritual, and intuition. May you embody your own unique essence so deeply that your vibration naturally teaches, inspires, and assists others. Let's dive in. In today's episode, I will share with you one of the over 20 masterclasses of the She Who Stands for a New World Global Online Retreat. An online experience with over 20 workshops, masterclasses, and interviews from oracles, wisdom keepers, astrologers, dancers, facilitators, and just a really beautiful variety of people that show up for the world they want to live in. This retreat has been created from the intention to, in these times of change and crisis in the world that can bring up fear and doubt about where we are going as a world, to stand up and show up for your mission, for your business, for the message that you are here to bring for the world. So this global online retreat, She Who Stands for a New World, is there to help you connect to the core of your essence, the heart of your mission, and the soul of your business. So enjoy today's masterclass. If you feel inspired to purchase the whole bundle of over 20 masterclasses, interviews, and workshops, you can purchase the whole bundle for only 47 euros. Link is below this episode. And for now, I wish you an incredible time with today's speaker. Much love. Welcome to the She Who Stands for a New World Global Online Retreat. My name is Nicole Costeres, and together with over 20 female leaders, I'm here to offer you a portal into the core of your essence, the heart of your mission, and the soul of your business. So I am here today with Ayesha. And Ayesha Durrani is also known as Oath Oracle. She's an astrologer and business oracle, serving New Earth leaders to create overflowing prosperity with their soul gifts. The premise of her work is that our birth chart is the instructional manual for creating our heaven on earth. When we live and do business in alignment with our energetic blueprint, we become attuned to the rhythm of nature and the cosmos. This empowers all areas of life and allows us to quantum leap into powerful levels of fulfillment, wealth, and purpose. Ayesha lives in the wild west coast of Canada, and when she's not teaching or serving her private clients, she is hiking, swimming, dancing, and reading. Welcome, Ayesha. You are here today to speak about the path of prosperous purpose, empowering your life and business with astrology. I'm so happy that you are here with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Nicole. This is such an honor and privilege to be here with you and to connect with all of the women that I know, being attracted to an event that's coded with your frequency and all the other leaders that are a part of this. Such an honor for me to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, and I actually remember because I actually did one of your readings with you. And I remember that I received so much value that I had to watch the replay again because I couldn't digest the amount of value in the reading that I received. And I actually watched the replay quite a few times because it was such a beautiful transmission of my astrology chart. How did your love for astrology start? Where did it come from?
Well, my love for astrology began when I was 14 years old, and I'm currently 32. So it's been a long, deep decades of studying, like nearly 2 decades. I discovered astrology as a very lonely, depressed teenager who had no emotional support, no resources and tools of understanding that I had unprocessed trauma and nervous system very haywire. And astrology was such a sanctuary for me right from the first moment that I read the very first article just about my sun sign as an Aquarius sun, the most basic. By this article, I'm sitting there in front of my computer screen. I remember the moment like it was yesterday. And I felt so seen, even though this was an article on the internet. I felt seen almost for the first time in my life, truly, truly seen. So it was a long love story. And my study of astrology was really completely without agenda and ulterior motive. I never had any idea that this could be a business one day. And it was just truly for the love of discovering myself and learning myself and why things had been the way they had been. So I find it to be really empowering for those of us who've experienced any types of traumas when we realize this was part of the blueprint right from the start. And that was something really liberating for me. And throughout my teens, throughout my 20s, astrology was always there for me, even when everything else was very chaotic. So it's been such a gift for me. And now being able to bring it into my business, being able to bring it to other leaders has been just such a treat. And I remember our reading, Nicole. First of all, I was like, ooh, like doing a reading for this absolute queen. So excited. And I remember that your blueprint was really strong on the business and money side of things. And that wasn't where your work was at that time. And then I saw you step into that so strong and just claim that. And that's like impacting other people because of you being in that alignment. So I never stopped being in love with the gift of just knowing more and more and more about our blueprints.
I love it that you named this because I actually remember that back then I wasn't focused so much on business and money. And then it like in the last year and a half, it exploded literally. And I love that you point towards this blueprint. And can you share a bit more about like some of the gold in your own journey with astrology that you found along your way in discovering and deepening into your blueprint?
First, I mean, all of us start with our sun sign, and it's kind of funny because the sun literally represents the light of consciousness, and all of us are conscious of our sun sign, even if we don't believe in astrology whatsoever. So I love that. I think there's a lot of cosmic jokes within the journey of learning, this symbolism and archetypes. Discovering my moon sign was that was like the gateway to me really starting to understand that I'm more than my sun placement. And so the way that I like to relate with our chart is that we are all a universe. And what that universe is comprised of is not only one, it's all of these different types of archetypes. Of course, ultimately we transcend all archetypes and we really are all one. And there really is a unity consciousness, right? That is actually beyond that. But the understanding of these different archetypes helps us understand that, we incarnated here. We are individuated. There is differentials between us. And that's something really beautiful. We all have a warrior archetype in our chart. We all have this goddess archetype in our chart, and how they function and the personalities and the needs and requirements of those archetypes is different for each and every one of us. So understanding the moon sign, first of all, helped me radically accept my emotional nature. So for anyone I bet a lot of the listeners are kind of familiar with their astrology because I just feel like that may be the type of person that's attracted to this event. My sun sign is Aquarius. So something you'll read about Aquarius, and I resonate with almost everything I've ever read about Aquarius, except something you read again and again is, we're not very emotional. We're very detached and we're not very emotional. We don't like big emotional scenes. But as a moon in Pisces, I'm one of the most emotional moon placements that can actually exist in that placement. So it helped me to really radically accept myself instead of wonder, why am I like this? I'm supposed to be so detached. And why am I crying all of a sudden or having this emotions feeling like they're rocking me? And as we know, with shadow work and things like that, the more something is repressed or not accepted, the more it actually expresses because it must express. So when we repress or don't accept something, it usually expresses in a way we're not proud of, or expresses from our blind spot, or expresses as a compulsion of some kind. So that was really freeing and liberating for me. And I find that our chart is one of the best permission slips possible. So that was a really big one for me. And then as I go deeper into it, learning about our Venus and Mars signs. So powerful and important, especially for entrepreneurs, because Venus is the planet of love, beauty, art, and money. So she's everything we want. She's very like a Lakshmi energy of everything we want. And Mars is the warrior archetype of anger, boundaries, and how we take action to go attain what we want. So it's almost like Mars, in a way, is working for Venus, if that makes sense. Venus is our desires and Mars is how we go after that. So leveraging that information in life, like relationships, very, very powerful. Leveraging that information for business, very, very, very powerful.
Yeah. I actually also have my moon in Pisces. So we have our moon in the same sign. Yeah.
So many moon and Pisces people like are in my life, and I love it because if you don't have a water moon sign, it's hard to understand the depth of the emotions of someone with a water moon sign. It's an ocean of emotion, and it's really beautiful. But it can be really painful when we don't have the emotional intelligence of understanding our emotional nature. For a lot of us, it can be really painful in those younger years.
Yeah, beautiful. So it sounds to me that you found a lot of gifts and goals in exploring more with your moon sign as well. Can you share more? Because I can imagine that even for the ones who are listening now, that as soon as they come out of this call, that they will explore what is my chart and what is my sun and what is my moon. So for when they're going to do that, can you share a little bit more about like what does the moon sign represents? Because you said the sun is like the consciousness, it's that which is like almost obvious and very visible. And what are some of those flavors and characteristics of the moon sign?
So the moon is unconscious. The moon is, you can connect to it as a wild feminine type archetype because she's constantly fluctuating. When we look in the sky, she looks different. She changes signs every 2.5 days. So she's very wild. She requires a full radical acceptance. Just like if we think of menstrual cycles, we really accepting and going with that flow in that cycle instead of being like, oh, this is so inconvenient. You know what I mean? Really accepting what is very powerful with the moon sign. And the moon is representing and can give us information on our intuitive nature, our emotional framework, our intuitive and psychic gifts. We can really find a lot of gold for that within our moon sign. And the moon also represents our experience of our mother, who for most of us is our primary caregiver. And she's wiring our nervous system and how we relate with other people. So it's really so much depth with the moon sign. It's one of the deepest things that we really can tap into. And as we're working with our moon, I just once again just continue to encourage a radical self-acceptance because we can never form her or manipulate her to be different than she is, similar with our menstrual cycles, where when we are letting it flow and working with that cyclical nature, something really beautiful happens when we allow ourselves to like honor that flow completely. And then the sun sign, it's our core archetype and personality, but the moon sign is who we are deep inside. For some people, it's the same sign, right? We all have a very, very unique placement. And understanding our moon really helps us also understand our requirements for emotional safety. And it can really inform self-care as well. So as we are, anyone who's resonates with being an activist or anyone who's doing high service, there is this really specific ways that we can take care of ourselves, that it's not just something prescribed from outside of ourselves, but it's really fitting for our blueprint, because not everyone will be recharged by the more typical self-care of face masks and baths. That's actually not for everyone. For some people, it's going to a kung fu class. For the Aries moons that might be listening, you know what I mean? Some people need there's a different menu of things we get to choose from. And when we understand our moon sign, that's the type of self-care that is going to really, really deeply nourish us. So ultimately, the moon is about nourishment, emotional safety. It represents the womb and the breasts. So it's connected with our mother, our experience of our mother, and the divine mother in general. So it's how we connect with the divine mother. So it's very, very potent to understand. It's very deep. It can be very inward. It might be a very private part of ourself. It's not private for everyone because it really depends on our whole chart. If it's the same sign as your sun sign, then it may not feel like a private part of you. It may feel like something that everyone knows. So yeah, it's really beautiful to go there and continue to come home to that. And also the moon is home. So the home of the womb, the home that we grew up in, the home that we live in now. So understanding that it's instructions for creating the sanctuary and emotional safety that helps us go do big work in the world.
Beautiful. So we have the sun and the consciousness, and then we have the moon where you go into the deeper self. Can you share a bit more about, because you shared that you were able to work through your past traumas and that you also support other people in working with their past traumas through astrology. So how does that work?
So there's a lot of places we can look to for karmic imprints in the chart. Some places that are a really powerful place to start is our Chiron. So Chiron is the archetype of the wounded healer. And our Chiron lets us know about karmic imprints that probably originated in a past life through some kind of trauma that may have even ended our life in a past life. So something very, very pronounced that really kind of sent a ripple through our incarnations. Chiron is not only this tender place in ourself. We tend to feel so tender about this, and we have it from day one. We have all the placements in our chart from the moment that we're born. So a place that can feel really tender, we may overcompensate for this. We may feel shame about this. We often think we're the only one that deals with it. So we're really good at actually kind of hiding it from others or protecting it. We have a self-preservation instinct with our Chiron. So similar, if you have hurt your knee, your body or your ankle, your body creates a limp automatically. You don't have to really try to limp. Your body's doing that. It's creating that so that you don't put lots of pressure on that wound or on that pain. So we have a similar thing with our Chiron, where we have this kind of instinctual defense mechanism that protects Chiron. Now, of course, we often don't work with Chiron right away, or we find out about Chiron in our 20s or our 30s. Many of us, maybe the newer generation, is discovering it a little bit earlier, but it's like, oh my God, usually it's a very huge aha moment for people when they discover what is their Chiron. Not only is it this wound, it's a very, very, very sacred wound that helps us actually create that healing for others through what we experience. So the most beautiful alchemy of Chiron is to actually dive into that wound, understand, oh my God, it just makes crazy sense, and understand that everything we experienced from that gets to inform how we then serve others. And it can often be, and I believe it is, our greatest healing gift, the most potent healing gift that we have.
Beautiful. I was actually speaking with one of the other speakers, and we were talking about how the challenges in our life, like going into those challenges, are actually the creation of our body of work. And that's actually what you're touching upon here right now.
Yes,
it's when we move through the challenges and we eat our own shadows and we unpack the layers of what is like captivating us. That's where a body of work actually gets created.
Literally. Yeah. It literally qualifies us. And some examples I'd like to share with Chiron is my Chiron. Ultimately, the wound is around, for me personally, I have Chiron in Cancer. The wound is around abandonment, safety, family things, emotional safety. And the other side of it is the house placement. So the house placement is when you're looking at your chart, all of our planets and asteroids and things are in a sign, and it's also in a house. The houses represent areas of life. So in my house placement, it's around groups and community, not fitting in, being different. And there can also be a wound around hopes, dreams, and wishes, because the 11th house and everything in life lives somewhere in astrology. So like 11th house, groups, community, and it's also hopes, dreams, and wishes. So these higher visions that we have are these higher dreams. So I have a wound around that. And as I was growing up, I never, ever, ever was like, I'm going to be a ballerina. I'm going to be an astronaut. I'm going to be a doctor. I never had that at all, because I also grew up in poverty. So to me, I was like, I'm lucky if I have any kind of job. I'm lucky if I survive. Like I was very much in a scarcity mentality right from the start. I never had this idealism of like, when I grow up, I'm going to be this cool job. That just did not exist for me. And when I discovered that I had this wound around hopes, dreams, and wishes, I was like, oh my God, I have a wound around dreaming big because I don't want my feelings to get hurt when it doesn't work out. Then the other side of it was the family, emotional safety, because those are the themes of Cancer. So when I tap into that, my modalities, which is, yes, I use astrology. It's a huge part of who I am. I love business strategy. I love wealth energetics and all these things. But ultimately, the medicine that is behind all of that has to do with nothing of that. And it has to do with helping others feel safe to follow our dreams, the safety with the dreams, and also accept our originality and be willing to not fit in, basically. So when I work with my clients on this, it's like our offers, our modalities, the niche that we say we are in, when we understand there's a deeper healing gift behind that that may not be obviously apparent right away, like that emotional safety to follow our dreams, that's not something that is apparent through my niche and through my modalities. But when we tap into that, it's like we are equipped and qualified, and it actually gives honor and reverence to all the pain we experienced in the past. So another example I want to give, because I believe many readers will have this placement, is Chiron in Gemini. So Chiron in Gemini is a wound around communication. Many people with this wound, it originates from a lifetime of a witch wound origin, basically, because Chiron in Gemini has to do with pain or the end of life that came through communication. So whether it was information, during witch hunt times, there was a lot of information being used in order to like, hey, you need to tell me if your neighbor harvest plants in the forest under the full moon, or like if something bad will happen to you. So that's where a lot of sister wounds originate. There was a lot of people using information against one another. It could even be that the person who has Chiron and Gemini let something slip. They let a piece of information slip that got them in trouble, and then that led to the end of their life. So Chiron and Gemini folks have a wound around communication. So they can put a lot of pressure on themselves to say everything perfectly, or they can feel like it's kind of life or death when they communicate. So I have a lot of business coaching clients that come to me that have Chiron and Gemini, and we work through a lot of things around this where they are not seeing, they know they have this beautiful gift, but they're not seeing the sales and the clients because they are not willing, and they put a lot of control on the throat because it's like there's a lot of pressure that it has to be really perfect, or there's some kind of huge consequence, almost like a dread around it. So there's a lot of pressure for it to be perfect, and usually perfectionism freezes us. So for example, if this comes up with my clients, when people talk to me about wanting to make more sales, usually what I say is go on video, because that's, I believe, the highest converting type of media that there is, because people can really feel your energy and what it's like to be in session with you. And my Chiron and Gemini client will say things like, what if someone asks me a question I don't know the answer? So the reason I'm bringing this up, if you have Chiron and Gemini, you have such deeper and greater gifts to help other people learn to express themselves and have that full radical love that it doesn't have to be perfect. The fact that the song is on your heart is enough. Someone with Chiron and Gemini has a greater gift at helping people with that than I do, because that's not my wound. So I can understand it from an astrology point of view, from an experience of working with people and knowing, finding out what works and what doesn't. I have experience, but the depth that someone who actually has Chiron and Gemini, who has done that healing, the way that they're able to hit people, oh, it just goes so deep. So that's how we alchemize our greatest wounds into something so beautiful. And all those years of that being something that we didn't like about ourselves becomes alchemized into something so beautiful. So it's just one of my favorite topics.
I love your excitement also. And I feel like, I'm just wondering, is everybody able to find that on their chart, the Chiron?
Yes.
Is that easy to find?
It is, yeah. So it looks like a key. And for anyone who is like, I don't even know what these symbols mean, I have a free PDF that I think will be linked in this information that has everything broken down. So it will show all the symbols, how to look for them, how to generate your chart, and my interpretations of the houses and signs. So that's a really great way to just decode your chart yourself and start diving into it. Chiron looks like a key. Some services, I recommend astro.com, and this is all in the PDF that I created, my free guide. I recommend astro.com. Other services, you may have to select Chiron. So sometimes there's something like extended chart selection or like advanced options. So if you're using something and you can't find it, you can just Google like how to select Chiron on, and then write the service that you're using. And it is great to have our time of birth. So as obviously the time of birth and the accuracy of that adds a whole other dimension. For those of you who don't know your time of birth, you will just not be able to connect with what house that Chiron is in, but you will be able to know what sign it's in. So there's just another dimension there when we have our time of birth, if we're able to get it.
Yeah. I feel we're already naturally like coming from like past trauma more into the realms of like marketing and business, because you started to touch upon sales. And I also really feel your unique soul shine here, because I know a lot of astrologers, but I don't know any others that are going into like business and sales and marketing. And like, even I remember you asking me, do you know the birth time of your business? And I was like, I don't know. And I remember going through my Instagram to see if I could find the birth time for women of ancient futures, because then you can actually like do a whole astrology reading on the being that is your business.
Yes.
So can you share a little bit more about astrology in connection to marketing, in connection to business?
Absolutely. So as you shared when you were introducing me, the birth chart is the instruction manual for creating our heaven on earth. And now we're starting to understand more and more in new paradigm business that it's us being the best version of ourselves and being on the journey of just being more and more and more and more of ourselves, and then using strategies that are actually aligned with us so that that can reach other people. And we're starting to see people create amazing success, really being truly authentic. So I find that astrology is so helpful because I work with clients for business, and common questions that I receive are questions like when, how, what should I even offer? All of these questions can be answered by the birth chart. Now, one thing I want to say is we never need the birth chart to tell us things. We have all the answers. But the thing is, the birth chart is us. So the birth chart is communion from our higher self, and it's going to tell us how we are wired to express ourselves. the light and energy that we're emanating from our body through the rising sign. So many parts of astrology get to inform business, because when we're running soul business, it's about being who we are and contributing our unique medicine. And it's really helped me personally not get caught up in all the trends and all the shoulds that we see when we enter the online business space. So when I entered the online business space, when I was 31 years old, I've been studying astrology for many years, never, ever, ever from a space of, I'm going to make this business. And these are, never from that space. And I'm a projector in human design. So I feel like some listeners will be aware of what this means. And basically, one of the strategies for projectors is I'm here to wait for the invitation. So somewhere along the line, when I was in my late 20s, I began to get invited to do paid readings. So literally people were like, can I please pay you for a full reading? Because I would just do services for my friends for fun, because it was also good for me to look at other charts other than my own. And then I began to get invitations. Word of mouth went like crazy. And I was doing, quite a few readings every month with no website and no social media. So I saw the transits of 2020 in advance. Okay. So I was looking ahead at 2020. We all know how crazy 2020 was, but this was before that happened. I looked ahead at the transits of 2020. So another question people have a lot is when, right? When should I this? When should I that? So I could see, first of all, the economy is going to change. Stuff is going really, really crazy in 2020. I'm not going to have job security. That was how certain transits were impacting my chart as an individual. So that's when we really take it very precise. And I was like, okay, it looks like I'm not going to have job security. At the time, I was working 3 jobs, none of which were my passions, and then doing readings through word of mouth. And so it was time, because I could clearly see from the chart for many, many, many reasons, it's time for me to start my astrology website and start a social media and just get this going. I didn't think I would be going full time, but I instantly did go full time in my business because I was just following the flow. And as I entered the online business space, I knew a lot about astrology, but I didn't know a lot about business or marketing or copywriting or branding or anything like that. And so my personality is I like to go all in. And I really like to, I love to focus my energy on things that I care about. So I started going really deep into that. And just, when you first start, there's just such a huge, almost overwhelming abundance of information, right? Free classes, free master classes, all the checklists, like all the things. And I started out with the free things, right? As many of us do. I didn't have any budget I didn't save money before starting my business. I was actually in $2,000 of debt when I started my business. So over swimming in an ocean of information, and through it all, because I could see that, okay, this is how you have to do it. This is how you have to do it. The very formulaic thing. We all know what I mean. And I looked at everything through the lens of already knowing who I am and understanding that, oh, this works for that person because of their birth chart. This works for that person because it's their blueprint, because it aligns with their energetic blueprint. But I already know that me just trying on something that worked for someone else, even if they say, oh, this is the 1, 2, 3 to success, I already knew that's not actually how it's going to work. So I had the discernment that helped me filter through this ocean of information and strategies to find, okay, this strategy is aligned with me. So I'm going to just cherry pick this one. And it was very effective for me. And I was already having 10K months within 6 months. And now I'm in my second year, and it's like a $300,000 a year. So it's really beautiful what we can quantum leap when we already know our energetic blueprint and we just make choices in alignment with that.
Beautiful. Yeah, I really feel like celebrating you, because that's amazing.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Yeah. I feel curious because I can feel that in myself. I feel curious how that is for you, but I see this happen in a lot of entrepreneurs, is that when this wave starts to ride us and we start to come out more with our soul shine, there can also be this life pulling us too much into work and into creation and into manifestation and into outward. Does astrology also touch upon that balance of the outward and the inward and the masculine and the feminine, and basically showing us ways of not getting overworked? Because I see this happen to so many women that either come out more with their soul shine or have come out already and they're in this growth that is happening in their work.
Absolutely. I love that question. And there's always more than one answer to any question with astrology, because it's such a multidimensional, it's like a hologram. So it's so many different things we'll touch upon where we can't actually, we talk about them in an isolated way, like this is the moon, this is the sun, but really nothing works in isolation. So it's all very much connected. So some things to look at is our Chiron, because that's usually the root of us overcompensating in some way, right? So for me, it's like, now I have money. And so that helps me feel safe. And my wound is around safety. So if I make more money, I'll feel more safe. And there's a point where we're no longer in survival mode and safety is not actually a concern. And the compulsive, like, oh, well, let me keep making offers and keep showing up and doing stuff. It's to fill a void. And that's obviously not going to work. So understanding that about myself really helps me. It just helps me put a name to something rather than being in the stew of all the energies. So something I love about astrology is that I find astrology to be quite masculine in the sense of here's this wild universe that we live in of so many energies that is pretty much incomprehensible. But let's try and categorize it in alignment with these different archetypes. Like let's try and like wrap our mind around this in some way. So that's one thing. Our nodal axis and our north and south nodes are really, really, really powerful because they are the nodes of past life karma and future destiny. So I can literally talk for 5 hours just on this topic, but a quick summary is when you look at your chart, the north node will always be there. It looks like a horseshoe. The south node, sometimes you have to select that in the advanced option. So, if you're looking at your chart and you don't see something I'm talking about, you want to find where the advanced or the extended options are in the service that you're using. You might have to select the south node or descending node. So they're always exactly opposite from each other. They exist on an axis. So this is already a place where we're trying to bring balance to, and it's a place we can look at and find the origins or reasons of any imbalance we have in life. Our south node represents past life karma. So it's a little different than Chiron because Chiron, the way, in my opinion, some people might disagree with me. I believe Chiron comes from a past life traumatic ending to our life. It even could have been only one ending that happened, or it could be something that continues to perpetuate because we haven't alchemized that wound. Whereas the south node is past life karma, but it's not inherently traumatic. It's not inherently something of a wounding. It's simply what we've experienced again and again to the point that we've actually mastered it. And there's no more evolution or growth for us in those energies. But because it's a comfort zone and because it's something we have a soul familiarity with, we will gravitate to similar roles, as in roles in relationships, roles in jobs and professions, roles in our friends. Like, oh, I'm the one that everyone always gets to emotionally unload on. But then it's, I had this past life as being this like hugely nurturing figure. But we can keep choosing that. And other people may even project that and feel that from us because it may be coded into our field that like, yeah, I'm always here for you. I'm always here for you. Just in this particular example where the person's past life is this nurturing energy. So we can find a lot of if we're ever like not doing what we kind of know on a soul level we should be doing, like resting more or having a higher quality of life overall instead of just increasing numbers with success, etc., we can often find the reason for that or the root of that in our south node or our Chiron placement. So our south node, past life karma, we thoroughly explored this. And the north node is the undeveloped part of that axis. So they're always opposite from one another. So that means they're in opposite signs and they're in opposite houses. So they're activating an axis. And a way that I like to look at it, because oftentimes when people first get into the topic of the nodes, which is very enchanting and captivating, so it's like, oh my God, like it's so fun. And then we tend to think, south node, bad, north node, good. But we don't want to reject our past life energies. We actually want to realize we have these resources. And something I love about astrology is that it's the study of fate and free will. So the fated parts this is what is in our chart, but all things in our chart have a high and low and light and shadow and all the spectrum of expressions. And that's where our free will comes into play. So many people can live their lives in a south node energy where they don't go out of their comfort zone and they're just not living a life of fulfillment. But we can also take those resources. If we reject it, there's a greater emotional charge around those energies of our south node. So when there's a greater emotional charge, you usually don't have the like results that we want or express in the way that we want. When we realize these are resources that I have and we choose to take it into the uncharted land, which is the north node. So the north node is things our soul has probably not experienced, something that our soul has always wanted to and desired to experience. And that's actually the key to not only our evolution, but it's the key to quantum leaping. It's the key to manifesting the life of our desires. It's the key to collapsing timelines, because when we're in the path of the north node, we are finally walking the path that our higher self wanted to walk and that spirit wants us to walk. So when we do that, everything we need is given to us. It's very, very powerful. I see it again and again and again. It's really, truly so fun. And when we understand, okay, I have this Chiron wound, I have this south node kind of habits, habitual ways of being, residual hangover of these familiarity with certain roles that I tend to fall into, then we really start to understand, and we have this pause of a moment of like, oh, here's my knee-jerk reaction in this moment is let me do another thing or pile another thing on. But when we understand these frequencies, so it's not just about consciously understanding information, there's a certain frequency where it's like, oh, this is my south node right now, I'm not going to act on that.
I love that. So if the women who are watching now want to tune more into their north node, would that just be a matter of seeing on which sign that is connected to and then just studying more about that sign? Or what are ways into connecting more into our north node?
So definitely the sign as well as the house. So if you have your time of birth, the house is really, really, really important because so a very common question I receive is what's the difference between signs and houses? Signs are like the personality and the archetype, and the house is the area of life where this shows up. So it's really, really powerful to understand the house. As I said, I have a free guide with all of the interpretations. You can look at what it is and start there. I also have a workshop that's only on the nodes. It's called The Path of Becoming. So that's also an option. When we're understanding, okay, here's my north node, I'm still studying my own nodes. Like, you know what I mean? We never get to the end of really knowing and fully knowing. It's a beautiful spiral, like so many things are in life. So I love some tips is for sure, get to know the sign that it's in and start to understand, usually it's something for many of us, our north node can actually be something which might trigger us when other people are embodying it. So for example, I'm going to use the axis of Cancer and Capricorn. If someone has their south node in Cancer, this is the archetype of the divine mother. So they may have these past life experiences. It could be many lifetimes of being the emotional backbone of a family, being the mother, the caretaker, the grandmother, being that strong matriarchal energy of like, I'm just this ocean of love. I'm always here for you. I'll do anything for you. But their soul is no longer finding evolution, living that story and that role any longer. So their north node is in Capricorn, and Capricorn is very industrious, ambitious, achievement, CEO energy, being an entrepreneur, being a boss. Yet this person with the south node in Cancer can spend their whole lives just finding a job where they feel really appreciated, for example, or where they feel really needed by others, but they don't follow that path of like their highest ambition, almost because they think, oh, that's not for me. I'm here to support others, not like go off on my own and like go after my ambitions. Like, I want to be a good person and be really of service and be of that emotional service. So people that are in their Capricorn energy can be a really powerful teacher for someone who that's their north node, because their soul is like, hey, I want to experience this. I have gifts and I want to make a structure. I want to make a business where people are able to engage with that. And actually, it's like a totally different type of service. It's a service just on a different level. They may even still do emotional work like counseling or coaching where they're going really deep with people, but they're putting a structure around that instead of having this energy leaking everywhere where it's like this obligation or expectation of like, I'm always that person that has to be there to pick up the phone at 3 a.m. So that person learning about Capricorn energy, learning about the energy of the north node. And I like to have expanders in our life that are embodying the energy of our north node. So maybe they are a Capricorn sun or moon, or maybe they are just a really good embodiment of those highest qualities of that sign. And it's just kind of nice to hang out with them and just kind of notice like, oh, this is how you respond to this, or this is like your first reaction with this. It's interesting. It's not about trying to become them. It's about cultivating the part of ourself that is that archetype that just hasn't been developed in our soul experience yet. So getting to know both, we want to get to know the shadow qualities of the south node so that we can recognize them when they arise and be like, no, this isn't really me. This is conditioning and karmic imprints. It's not the truth of who I am. And then we also want to know the highest expressions of our south node so we can say, oh, these are resources that I have. I'm never going to stop being this compassionate person. I'm never going to stop caring about others feeling emotionally safe around me. And then understanding the highest expression of our north node. So through study, through YouTube videos, through getting readings with people, and also through noticing like people that embody that energy. So for some of us, we might have placements of other planets by our north node. So for example, I'm a north node Pisces, and my moon is also in Pisces, as we mentioned. So my emotional frameworks are actually already the same energy of my north node. So to me, it's not something totally foreign to be that mystic, which is the north node Pisces. But my south node is in Virgo. So I definitely have the Virgo shadows of perfectionism and pushing myself really hard and really being available all the time. Like, yes, I just always have to be there and respond to opportunities and things like that. It's literally a sign of service. But the beauty that south node has given me is a really, really keen attention to detail and really high standards for what I do. And I feel like that's felt in my work. So for some of us, our North Node might be somewhere where we have no other planets, and it might feel like total, that's like, whoa, like that's not for me. Or someone might have their North Node in Leo, where it's like, you're here to get in the spotlight. And they're like, no. I don't want to do that. And it's like, a part of you does. A part of you really, really does. You just have to meet that side of yourself. So it's not about changing who we are at the core. It's about becoming more of who our soul, like who we came here to be.
Yeah, I totally recognize that my North Node is Taurus. And it was an invitation around luxury and like becoming more comfortable with material. And it came from like a place where I don't need a lot, I'll just travel and just like very basic. But in the last a year and a half, starting to embrace more like luxury and just giving myself permission to experience that has been such a transformational experience for me. And it doesn't mean I can still go into the jungle and be like in a super basic hut without electricity and shower and just like enjoy nature in a very basic way. But it allows my being to stretch into both or in all directions, right? And not hold a judgment or rejection towards that direction when actually my soul would love to experience.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like that's part of why in your reading we talked about like moving into money and business, because when we do the thing of our North Node, the resources that we're given by spirit and the flow that we find there when we surrender to that, it's just unreal. And I see it again and again with people where they have these huge breakthroughs where like, wow, like they reach a level of success they didn't even think was possible.
Yeah.
It's a very beautiful path.
Yeah. And I remember starting to work with my business coach, and she was really about money and business. And I said, I feel so triggered by you. And the next day I decided to work with her.
Yes. I love that so much.
Yeah. So now there's another curiosity I have, and it's maybe slightly in a different direction, but when I offer my women a connection to the soul of their business, it's also very much about connecting to the energies and the flavors and the colors that we experience in there. And I know you also touch with your work upon astrology and branding. So can you share a little bit more about that? Because it's also a topic that really excites me. Like, how can we like portray our work in a way that it really reflects who we are in our essence, also in the colors, in the fonts, in the way it's presented to the outside world?
Absolutely. And I feel like this is one of the things where when we enter the online business space, naturally we want to look around and see what other people are doing, right? Like when I was starting my Instagram and my website, it's like, okay, I don't even go to astrologers' websites. Like, I didn't follow astrologers on social media or anything. So I went and go check out the lay of the land. Like, what are people doing? And in the first few posts of my Instagram, I was doing a pastel thing because I was seeing so much ethereal, mystical, iridescent type energies in the astrology world. And I was just like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do, I guess. And very, very quickly just shattered that, because of course I had the reflection of my birth chart, which someone recently asked me, how often do you look at your birth chart? And I said every day. And they were shocked, because this is every day for like 20 years. Like I never stop. It's like looking in a mirror to me. And something that I like to say is doing business without astrology is like plucking my eyebrows without a mirror. It's like, it just gives me this mirror. So very quickly I shattered the very light pastel, non-threatening color scheme that for someone else, it will be very much in alignment. So things I love to connect with for branding is, first of all, it's so important to realize branding is not about convincing other people to work with us. It's not about like impressing people, and it's not about making it look a certain thing. And branding is about helping our soul aligned clients find and recognize us. So especially when we do deep work, like one-on-one work, and maybe even programs, we have soul contracts with people to work with them. There is this connection that's actually like predetermined, in my opinion, a lot of the time. So the most important thing is recognizing, if I have this medicine on my heart, that is the confirmation that there are people out there that can benefit from receiving that medicine. Like that, the fact that it's on our heart, that's the confirmation. So we don't need to be in a begging or convincing energy ever. And really seeing branding and marketing as a way to just help those people recognize us in the sea of all the people, in the sea of all the accounts on social media. It's not about, I need to be different so I stand out. It's about, I need to be the most of myself so that that can be a beacon for those people who are actually kind of meant to receive that medicine, or at the very least can benefit from our medicine. So some astrology things that are really fun to play with for this is, first of all, the rising sign. So for a rising sign, we definitely need our time of birth. And our rising sign is also known as our ascendant. It's the sign that was rising on the eastern horizon when we were born at our moment of birth. And it's indicating and representing Some astrologers call it the mask we wear for the world. I don't necessarily connect with it as a mask, but I get why people say that because it's our appearance. It's this vessel and this vehicle that we're in. It describes our body. It also describes the style that we have. So it's like our genetic body as well as the style that we have, the way we express. It's visible and invisible because there's a vibe going on. It can feel like a mask for some people when it's very different than all our other placements. Like it doesn't actually align with our personality because it's not about our personality. It's about our outward emanation and the vehicle that we incarnated in. We can also think of it as a handshake. It's like the first impression, even before someone has spoken to us, that they have this first impression. So when we understand that this is our emanation, it's already emanating from our body. If we're trying on other branding and other marketing that clashes with that energy, we're destroying our magnetism because our magnetism, part of it is what we're exuding and part of it is what we're attracting, right? Like that's the magnetic poles. There's exuding and attracting. So when we leverage that energy and actually highlight and complement through our branding what we're already exuding, that's when we have a lot of magnetism, especially in terms of our visual identity or the visuals that we're choosing. So I didn't know much about branding when I started my business, and I quickly fell in love with it, and especially helping clients with the rising sign, the branding, and other points that I'll mention as well, that help us put together these puzzles of like, oh, this is my blueprint for expression. So when I express in alignment with this, my soulmate clients will see me. They'll be able to see and recognize, oh, there's a recognition that's happening. Whereas if I try on someone else's branding, even if I like it. So one thing that I experienced was, oh, I like this. So if I like it, then maybe I should use it because I do like it. Like I like this type of color palette or this or this. And so there, to me, we can authentically like something and resonate with it from an appreciation place, yet it still may not be actually correct for us personally. So rising sign, when we leverage that, it's like this Batman, it's like the Batman signal that we're sending out there. So the most important thing is expressing that authentically, not in the sense of it needs to be so impressive and it needs to show people this and blah, blah, blah. It's really about expressing ourselves. And it's just this really cool way to understand, oh, I'm exuding this energy already. So I am a Leo rising. Are you a Leo rising too? I can't. Okay,
Yes.
I thought so. It's been a while since we did our reading, but it's just like the hair, the face, like we are very Leo rising people.
Yeah.
And so none of my placements are Leo. In my charts, my personality, I'm very, very private. And people think that I'm super extroverted and confident. And people think I'm very like outgoing. People often guess me as a Leo. And that's the thing. It's the handshake, right? So it's the first impression. So when people guess me as a Leo, I always think like, oh, it's like proof that astrology is real, like in a way. But my sun sign, my Venus sign are in the opposite of Leo. And I have just no personality placements in Leo. My Mercury, my other placements are very not Leo. So I'm very happy just being by myself, studying astrology in my room in the dark for so many years. So when I started to recognize, okay, as a Leo rising, I'm here to shine my light to the biggest possible degree. And Leo's a sign that's very personal. It's literally the sign of the individual and it's ruled by the sun. So for us Leo rising people, we got to understand our rising sign isn't something we randomly have. It was a choice that our soul made because this is the vehicle for our purpose to have the greatest effect. And part of what I had to accept with being a Leo rising, part of me, my Aquarius part, my sun, my Mercury, there's parts of me that feel embarrassed by even saying what I'm about to say. I'm here to be a role model. That was very hard for me to accept, and showing people my face, showing people my personal life. That's not for everyone. And so you'll see business coaches say, share very vulnerably about your personal life. And then you'll hear business coaches say, don't talk about your personal life. That's not professional. Both of them are true and both of them are false because it's really about our blueprint. So my clients and the people that I'm here to impact, they resonate with me sharing about myself and really sharing my success and things like that. I do accept that many people are probably not going to like that and unfollow and really have that radical acceptance that they are not the people that my content is meant for, period. So when I started to take that into account more for branding, I started using more golden tones. I started being more bright and vibrant with certain colors. So we can take it as literally or not literally as we want. I don't just make everything red and orange because it's Leo and it's like a fire sign. You can do that, but I have a lot of other things that I also weave in that are also in my chart. So I have a little bit of a darker edge because of certain other things. So I started to share more of myself. I started to share more photos of myself. Or when I first began my business, I assumed that, because I have like tattoos on my hands, I have tattoo on my neck. Like I just thought that I should like tone it down a little bit. So I did that for like a little bit, and it very quickly just shattered right out of that. There were things I thought that I would never share on my social media, not because I was hiding anything, but because I didn't feel that it was relevant. So for example, I dropped out of high school when I was 15. I used to be a stripper. These are things that I just, oh, why would I ever say this is an astrology account? Like I'm not necessarily hiding it, but it's just not relevant. It is relevant when you're a Leo rising because people want to know our journeys. So that's something that was a huge permission slip for me. And as soon as I opened one door, there was a huge up level in my success, analytics, like momentum and all that kind of stuff. And every time I shared a little bit more and a little bit more, at first I didn't even go by my name, Ayesha. I went by Oath Oracle. I signed everything off as Oath. So there's like all these steps along the way of me being and claiming that more and more and more. So that's a really fun one to work with, is our rising sign.
Beautiful. I love it so much. And I love this piece that in the end, what it comes down to is to fully show ourselves, and to embrace that the people who don't like that are probably not your followers to be. Like they're not meant to be your followers. Yeah.
Yep. It's like, let them go, let them free. It's like, bye.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the less we care about that, the more we can come out and the more also our unique flavor starts to shine through.
And the more we're being ourselves, the more we're not in competition with others, right? And so when we're not, and we're looking to the external to tell us what we should be posting about and what our graphics should look like and what our branding should look like, and what our website should look like, we're not rooted in ourselves, obviously. But when we are rooted in ourselves, it's like things just pass, right? People follow, people unfollow, things just pass, and we're really rooted in ourselves, even though what we're rooted in is also always changing. So it's this really beautiful flow that we get to find. And then there's less resistance to the success that we actually desire as well. So the more we're really being who we are and claiming that and expressing that in fun ways, in artful ways, in strategic ways, in the strategies that are aligned for us, not just all the strategies that we see out there, there's just a greater magnetism and ease. And it's just such a beautiful thing, because I didn't know that existed until I came out here into the online business world and really started applying that.
Wow, beautiful. I want to thank you so much for all the amazing inspiration that you shared with us today. You've been naming already a few times that you have this free gift, Foundational Astrology Guide. And I highly recommend everyone to go and download that, because I think then you can come back even to this again and just see like where are all your signs and your homes and basically what your blueprint looks like. Thank you so much. And we both send you much, much love. Did you receive any inspiration, motivation, or powerful breakthroughs by listening to this episode? Then please share this episode by taking a screenshot and tagging me in your stories at nicole.nima.costeres. I would love to celebrate you, share you in my stories, and it would mean so much to have my work reach more powerful, passionate women like you. Thank you so much, and looking forward to see you next week.